over by a relative who put into his mouth food which he mechanically swallowed. Days and nights thus passed with the boy. When a whole day would pass, towards the evening, when the peal of bells in the temples and the voices singing would reach the wood, it would make the boy very sad, and he would cry, "Another day is gone in vain, mother, and thou dost not come. Another day of this short life has gone, and I have not known the truth." In the agony of his soul, sometimes he would rub his face against the ground and weep, and this one prayer burst forth, "Do thou manifest thyself in me, thou mother of the universe. See that I need thee and nothing else." Verily, he wanted to be true to his own ideal. He had heard that the mother never came until everything had been given up for her. He had heard that the mother wanted to come to everyone, but they would not have her, that people wanted all sorts of foolish little idols to pray to, that they wanted their own enjoyments, and not the mother, and that the moment they really wanted her with their whole soul and nothing else, that moment she would come. So he began to break himself into that idea. He wanted to be exact, even on the plane of matter. He threw away all the little property he had, and took a vow that he would never touch money, and this one idea, "I will not touch money," became a part of him. It may appear to be something occult, but even in afterlife, when he was sleeping, if I touched him with a piece of money, his hand would become bent, and his whole body would become, as it were, paralyzed. The other idea that came into his mind was that lust was the other enemy. Man is a soul, and soul is sexless, neither man nor woman. The idea of sex and the idea of money were the two things, he thought, that prevented him from seeing the mother. This whole universe is the manifestation of the mother, and she lives in every woman's body. Every woman represents the mother. How can I think of woman in mere sex relation? That was the idea. Every woman was his mother. He must bring himself to the state when he would see nothing but mother in every woman. And he carried it out in his life. This is the tremendous thirst that seizes the human heart. Later on, this very man said to me, "My child, suppose there is a bag of gold in one room and a robber in the next room. Do you think that the robber can sleep? He cannot. His mind will be always thinking how to get into that room and obtain possession of that gold. Do you think then that a man firmly persuaded that there is a reality behind all these appearances, that there is a God, that there is one who never dies, one who is infinite bliss, a bliss compared with which these pleasures of the senses are simply playthings, can rest contented without struggling to attain it? Can he cease his efforts for a moment? No. He will become mad with longing." This divine madness seized the boy. At that time, he had no teacher, nobody to tell him anything, and everyone thought that he was out of his mind. This is the ordinary condition of things. If a man throws aside the vanities of the world, we hear him called mad. But such men are the salt of the earth. Out of such madness have come the powers that have moved this world of ours, and out of such madness alone will come the powers of the future that are going to move the world. So days, weeks, months passed in continuous struggle of the soul to arrive at truth. The boy began to see visions, to see wonderful things. The secrets of his nature were beginning to open to him. Veil after veil was, as it were, being taken off. Mother herself became the teacher and initiated the boy into the truths he sought. At this time, there came to this place a woman of beautiful appearance, learned beyond compare. Later on, this saint used to say about her that she was not learned, but was the embodiment of learning. She was learning itself in human form. There too, you find the peculiarity of the Indian nation. in the midst of the ignorance in which the average Hindu woman lives, in the midst of what is called in Western countries her lack of freedom, there could arise a woman of this supreme spirituality. She was a sannyasini, for women also give up the world, throw away their property, do not marry, and devote themselves to the worship of the Lord. She came, and when she heard of this boy in the grove, she offered to go and see him, and hers was the first help he received. At once she recognized what his trouble was, and she said to him, "My son, blessed is the man upon whom such madness comes. The whole of the universe is mad, some for wealth, some for pleasure, some for fame, some for 100 other things. They are mad for gold or husbands or wives, for little trifles, mad to tyrannize over somebody, mad to become rich, mad for every foolish thing except God. And they can understand only their own madness. When another man is mad after gold, they have fellow feeling and sympathy for him, and they say he is the right man, as lunatics think that lunatics alone are sane. But if a man is mad after the beloved, after the Lord, how can they understand? They think he has gone crazy, and they say, have nothing to do with him. That is why they call you mad. But yours is the right kind of madness. Blessed is the man who is mad after God. Such men are very few." This woman remained near the boy for years, taught him the forms of the religions of India, initiated him in the different practices of yoga, and as it were, guided and brought into harmony this tremendous river of spirituality. Later, there came to the same grove a sannyasin, one of the begging friars of India, a learned man, a philosopher. He was a peculiar man. He was an idealist. He did not believe that this world existed in reality, and to demonstrate that, he would never go under a roof. He would always live out of doors, in storm and sunshine alike. This man began to teach the boy the philosophy of the Vedas, and he found very soon, to his astonishment, that the pupil was in some respects wiser than the master. He spent several months with the boy, after which he initiated him into the order of sannyasins and took his departure. Adventures and Achievements. When, as a temple priest, his extraordinary worship made people think him deranged in his head, his relatives took him home and married him to a little girl, thinking that would turn his thoughts and restore the balance of his mind. But he came back and, as we have seen, merged deeper in his madness. Sometimes in our country, boys are married as children and have no voice in the matter. Their parents marry them. Of course, such a marriage is little more than a betrothal. When they are married, they still continue to live with their parents, and the real marriage takes place when the wife grows older, when it is customary for the husband to go and bring his bride to his own home. In this case, however, the husband had entirely forgotten he had a wife. In her far-off home, the girl had heard that her husband had become a religious enthusiast, and that he was even considered insane by many. She resolved to learn the truth for herself, so she set out and walked to the place where her husband was. When, at last, she stood in her husband's presence, he at once admitted her right to his life, although in India, any person, man or woman, who embraces a religious life is thereby freed from all other obligations. The young man fell at the feet of his wife and said, "As for me, the mother has shown me that she resides in every woman, and so I have learnt to look upon every woman as mother. That is the one idea I can have about you. But if you wish to drag me into the world, as I have been married to you, I am at your service." The maiden was a pure and noble soul, and was able to understand her husband's aspirations and sympathize with them. She quickly told him that she had no wish to drag him down to a life of worldliness, but that all she desired was to remain near him, to serve him, and to learn of him. She became one of his most devoted disciples, always revering him as a divine being. Thus, through his wife's consent, the last barrier was removed, and he was free to lead the life he had chosen. The next desire that seized upon the soul of this man was to know the truth about the various religions. Up to that time, he had not known any religion but his own. He wanted to understand what other religions were like. So he sought teachers of other religions. By teachers, you must always remember what we mean in India, not a bookworm, but a man of realization, one who knows truth at first hand and not through an intermediary. He found a Mohammedan saint and placed himself under him. He underwent the disciplines prescribed by him, and to his astonishment found that, when faithfully carried out, these devotional methods led him to the same goal he had already attained. He gathered similar experience from following the true religion of Jesus the Christ. He went to all the sects he could find, and whatever he took up, he went into with his whole heart. He did exactly as he was told, and in every instance he arrived at the same result. Thus, from actual experience, he came to know that the goal of every religion is the same, that each is trying to teach the same thing, the difference being largely in method, and still more in language. At the core, all sects and all religions have the same aim, and they were only quarreling for their own selfish purposes. They were not anxious about the truth, but about my name and your name. Two of them preached the same truth, but one of them said, "That cannot be true, because I have not put upon it the seal of my name. Therefore do not listen to him." And the other man said, "Do not hear him, although he is preaching very much the same thing. Yet it is not true, because he does not preach it in my name." That is what my master found, and he then set about to learn humility, because he had found that the one idea in all religions is, "Not me, but thou," and he who says, "Not me," the Lord fills his heart. The less of this little I, the more of God there is in him. That he found to be the truth in every religion in the world, and he set himself to accomplish this. As I have told you, whenever he wanted to do anything, he never confined himself to fine theories, but would enter into the practice immediately. We see many persons talking the most wonderfully fine things about charity and about equality and the rights of other people and all that, but it is only in theory. I was so fortunate as to find one who was able to carry theory into practice. He had the most wonderful faculty of carrying everything into practice which he thought was right. Now, there was a family of Parayers living near the place. The Parayers number several millions in the whole of India and are a sect of people so low that some of our books say that if a Brahmin coming out from his house sees the face of a Parayer, he has to fast that day and recite certain prayers before he becomes holy again. In some Hindu cities, when a Parayer enters, he has to put a crow's feather on his head as a sign that he is a Parayer, and he has to cry aloud, "Save yourselves, the Parayer is passing through the street." And you will find people flying off from him as if by magic, because if they touch him by chance, they will have to change their clothes, bathe and do other things. And the Parayer, for thousands of years, has believed that it is perfectly right, that his touch will make everybody unholy. Now, my master would go to a Parayer and ask to be allowed to clean his house. The business of the Parayer is to clean the streets of the cities and to keep houses clean. He cannot enter the house by front door, by the back door he enters, and as soon as he has gone, the whole place over which he has passed is sprinkled with and made holy by a little Ganga water. By birth, the Brahmin stands for holiness and the Parayer for the very rivers. But this Brahmin asked to be allowed to do the menial services in the house of the Parayer. The Parayer, of course, could not allow that, for they all think that if they allow a Brahmin to do such menial work, it will be an awful sin and they will become extinct. The Parayer would not permit it. So, in the dead of night, when all were sleeping, Ramakrishna would enter the house. He had long hair, and with his hair he would wipe the place, saying, "O my mother, make me the servant of the Parayer, make me feel that I am even lower than the Parayer. They worship me best, who worship my worshippers. These are all my children, and your privilege is to serve them," is the teaching of Hindu scriptures. There were various other preparations which would take a long time to relate, and I want to give you just a sketch of his life. For years, he thus educated himself. One of the sadhanas was to root out the sex idea. Soul has no sex. It is neither male nor female. It is only in the body that sex exists, and the man who desires to reach the spirit cannot at the same time hold to sex distinctions. Having been born in a masculine body, this man wanted to bring the feminine idea into everything. He began to think that he was a woman, he dressed like a woman, spoke like a woman, gave up the occupations of men, and lived in the household among the women of a good family, until, after years of this discipline, his mind became changed, and he entirely forgot the idea of sex. Thus the whole view of life became changed to him. We hear in the West about worshipping woman, but this is usually for her youth and beauty. This man meant by worshipping woman that to him every woman's face was that of the blissful mother, and nothing but that. I myself have seen this man standing before those women whom society would not touch, and falling at their feet, bathed in tears, saying, "Mother, in one form thou art in the street, and in another form thou art the universe. I salute thee, Mother, I salute thee." Think of the blessedness of that life from which all carnality has vanished, which can look upon every woman with that love and reverence, when every woman's face becomes transfigured, and only the face of the Divine Mother, the blissful one, the protectress of the human race, shines upon it. That is what we want. Do you mean to say that the divinity back of a woman can ever be cheated? It never was and never will be. It always asserts itself. Unfailingly, it detects fraud, it detects hypocrisy. Unerringly, it feels the warmth of truth, the light of spirituality, the holiness of purity. Such purity is absolutely necessary if real spirituality is to be attained. His mission. This rigorous, unsullied purity came into the life of that man. All the struggles which we have in our lives were past for him. His hard-earned jewels of spirituality, for which he had given 3/4 of his life, were now ready to be given to humanity, and then began his mission. His teaching and preaching were peculiar. In our country, a teacher is a most highly venerated person. He is regarded as God himself. We have not even the same respect for our father and mother. Father and mother give us our body, but the teacher shows us the way to salvation. We are his children. We are born in the spiritual line of the teacher. All Hindus come to pay respect to an extraordinary teacher. They crowd around him. And here was such a teacher, but the teacher had no thought whether he was to be respected or not. He had not the least idea that he was a great teacher. He thought that it was mother who was doing everything and not he. He always said, "If any good comes from my lips, it is the mother who speaks. What have I to do with it?" That was his one idea about his work, and to the day of his death, he never gave it up. This man sought no one. His principle was, first form character, first earn spirituality, and results will come of themselves. His favorite illustration was, when the lotus opens, the bees come of their own accord to seek the honey. So let the lotus of your character be full blown, and the results will follow. This is a great lesson to learn. My master taught me this lesson hundreds of times, yet I often forget it. Few understand the power of thought. If a man goes into a cave, shuts himself in, and thinks one really great thought and dies, that thought will penetrate the walls of that cave, vibrate through space, and at last permeate the whole human race. Such is the power of thought. Be in no hurry, therefore, to give your thoughts to others. First have something to give. He alone teaches who has something to give, for teaching is not talking. Teaching is not imparting doctrines. It is communicating. Spirituality can be communicated just as really as I can give you a flower. This is true in the most literal sense. This idea is very old in India and finds illustration in the West in the theory, in the belief of apostolic succession. Therefore, first make character. That is the highest duty you can perform. Know truth for yourself, and there will be many to whom you can teach it afterwards. They will all come. This was the attitude of my master. He criticized no one. For years I lived with that man, but never did I hear those lips utter one word of condemnation for any sect. He had the same sympathy for all sects. He had found the harmony between them. A man may be intellectual, or devotional, or mystic, or active. The various religions represent one or the other of these types. Yet, it is possible to combine all the four in one man, and this is what future humanity is going to do. That was his idea. He condemned no one, but saw the good in all. People came by thousands to see and hear this wonderful man who spoke in a patwa, every word of which was forceful and instinct with light. For it is not what is spoken, much less the language in which it is spoken, but it is the personality of the speaker which dwells in everything he says that carries weight. Every one of us feels this at times. We hear most splendid orations, most wonderfully reasoned out discourses, and we go home and forget them all. At other times, we hear a few words in the simplest of language, and they enter into our lives, become part and parcel of ourselves, and produce lasting results. The words of a man who can put his personality into them take effect, but he must have tremendous personality. All teaching implies giving and taking. The teacher gives and the taught receives, but the one must have something to give, and the other must be open to receive. This man came to live near Calcutta, the capital of India, the most important university town in our country, which was sending out skeptics and materialists by the hundreds every year. Yet, many of these university men, skeptics and agnostics, used to come and listen to him. I heard of this man, and I went to hear him. He looked just like an ordinary man, with nothing remarkable about him. He used the most simple language, and I thought, can this man be a great teacher? Crept near to him and asked him the question which I had been asking others all my life. Do you believe in God, sir? Yes, he replied. Can you prove it, sir? Yes. How? Because I see him just as I see you here, only in a much intenser sense. That impressed me at once. For the first time, I had found a man who dared to say that he saw God, that religion was a reality to be felt, to be sensed in an infinitely more intense way than we can sense the world. I began to go to that man day after day, and I actually saw that religion could be given. One touch, one glance can change a whole life. I had read about Buddha and Christ and Muhammad, about all those different luminaries of ancient times, how they would stand up and say, "Be thou whole," and the man became whole. I now found it to be true, and when I myself saw this man, all skepticism was brushed aside. It could be done, and my master used to say, religion can be given and taken more tangibly, more really than anything else in the world. Be therefore spiritual first, have something to give, and then stand before the world and give it. Religion is not talk, or doctrines, or theories, nor is it sectarianism. Religion cannot live in sects and societies. It is the relation between the soul and God. How can it be made into a society? It would then degenerate into a business. And wherever there are business and business principles in religion, spirituality dies. Religion does not consist in erecting temples or building churches or attending public worship. It is not to be found in books or in words or in lectures or in organizations. Religion consists in realization. As a fact, we all know that nothing will satisfy us until we know the truth for ourselves. However we may argue, however much we may hear, but one thing will satisfy us, and that is our own realization. And such an experience is possible for every one of us if we will only try. The first ideal of this attempt to realize religion is that of renunciation. As far as we can, we must give up. Darkness and light, enjoyment of the world and enjoyment of God will never go together. Ye cannot serve God and mammon. Let people try it if they will, and I have seen millions in every country who have tried, but after all, it comes to nothing. If one word remains true in the saying, it is, give up everything for the sake of the Lord. This is a hard and long task, but you can begin it here and now. Bit by bit, we must go towards it. The second idea that I learnt from my master, and which is perhaps the most vital, is the wonderful truth that the religions of the world are not contradictory or antagonistic. They are but various phases of one eternal religion. That one eternal religion is applied to different planes of existence, is applied to the opinions of various minds and various races. There never was my religion or yours, my national religion or your national religion. There never existed many religions. There is only the one. One infinite religion existed all through eternity and will ever exist, and this religion is expressing itself in various countries in various ways. Therefore, we must respect all religions, and we must try to accept them all as far as we can. Religions manifest themselves not only according to race and geographical position, but according to individual powers. In one man, religion is manifesting itself as intense activity, as work. In another, it is manifesting itself as intense devotion. In yet another, as mysticism. In others, as philosophy, and so forth. It is wrong when we say to others, "Your methods are not right." Perhaps a man whose nature is that of love thinks that a man who does good to others is not on the right road to religion, but it is not his own way, and is therefore wrong. If the philosopher thinks, "Oh, the poor ignorant people, what do they know about a God of love and loving Him? They do not know what they mean," he is wrong, because they may be right and he also. To learn this central secret, that the truth may be one and yet many at the same time, that we may have different visions of the same truth from different standpoints, is exactly what must be done. Then, instead of antagonism to anyone, we shall have infinite sympathy with all. Knowing that as long as there are different natures born in this world, the same religious truth will require different adaptations, we shall understand that we are bound to have forbearance with each other. Just as nature is unity in variety, and infinite variation in the phenomenal, as in and through all these variations of the phenomenal runs the infinite, the unchangeable, the absolute unity, so it is with every man. The microcosm is but a miniature repetition of the macrocosm. In spite of all these variations, in and through them all runs this eternal harmony, and we have to recognize this. This idea, above all other ideas, I find to be the crying necessity of the day. Coming from a country which is a hotbed of religious sects, through good fortune or ill fortune, everyone who has a religious idea wants to send an advance guard. I have been acquainted from my childhood with the various sects of the world. Even the Mormons came to preach in India. Welcome them all. That is the soil on which to preach religion. There it takes root more than in any other country. If you come and teach politics to the Hindus, they do not understand. But if you come to preach religion, however curious it may be, you will have hundreds and thousands of followers in no time, and you have every chance of becoming a living God in your lifetime. I am glad it is so. It is the one thing we want in India. The sects among the Hindus are various, a great many in number, and some of them apparently hopelessly contradictory. Yet, they all tell you they are but different manifestations of religion. As different rivers, taking their start from different mountains, running crooked or straight, all come and mingle their waters in the ocean, so the different sects, with their different points of view, at last all come unto thee. This is not a theory. It has to be recognized, but not in that patronizing way which we see with some people. Oh yes, there are some very good things in it. These are what we call the ethical religions. These ethical religions have some good in them. Some even have the most wonderfully liberal idea that other religions are all little bits of a prehistoric evolution, but ours is the fulfillment of things. One man says, because his is the oldest religion, it is the best. Another makes the same claim because his is the latest. We have to recognize that each one of them has the same saving power as the other. What you have heard about their difference, whether in the temple or in the church, is a mass of superstition. The same God answers all, and it is not you or I or anybody of men that is responsible for the safety and salvation of the least little bit of the soul. The same Almighty God is responsible for all. I do not understand how people declare themselves to be believers in God and at the same time think that God has handed over to a little body of men all truth and that they are the guardians of the rest of humanity. How can you call that religion? Religion is realization, but mere talk, mere trying to believe, mere groping in darkness, mere parroting the words of ancestors and thinking it is religion, mere making a political something out of the truths of religion is not religion at all. In every sect, even among the Mohammedans, whom we always regard as the most exclusive, even among them, we find that wherever there was a man trying to realize religion, from his lips have come the fiery words, "Thou art the Lord of all, Thou art in the heart of all, Thou art the guide of all, Thou art the teacher of all, and Thou carest infinitely more for the land of Thy children than we can ever do." Do not try to disturb the faith of any man. If you can, give him something better. If you can get hold of a man where he stands and give him a push upwards, do so, but do not destroy what he has. The only true teacher is he who can convert himself, as it were, into 1,000 persons at a moment's notice. The only true teacher is he who can immediately come down to the level of the student and transfer his soul to the student's soul and see through the student's eyes and hear through his ears and understand through his mind. Such a teacher can really teach and none else. All these negative, breaking down, destructive teachers that are in the world can never do any good. In the presence of my master, I found that man could be perfect even in this body. Those lips never cursed anyone, never even criticized anyone. Those eyes were beyond the possibility of seeing evil. That mind had lost the power of thinking evil. He saw nothing but good. That tremendous purity, that tremendous renunciation is the one secret of spirituality. Neither through wealth nor through progeny, but through renunciation alone is immortality to be reached, say the Vedas. Sell all that thou hast and give to the poor, and follow me, says the Christ. So all great saints and prophets have expressed it and have carried it out in their lives. How can great spirituality come without that renunciation? Renunciation is the background of all religious thought wherever it be, and you will always find that as this idea of renunciation lessens, the more will the senses creep into the field of religion and spirituality will decrease in the same ratio. That man was the embodiment of renunciation. In our country, it is necessary for a man who becomes a sannyasin to give up all worldly wealth and position, and this my master carried out literally. There were many who would have felt themselves blessed if he would only have accepted a present from their hands, who would gladly have given him thousands of rupees if he would have taken them, but these were the only men from whom he would turn away. He was a triumphant example, a living realization of the complete conquest of lust and of desire for money. He was beyond all ideas of either, and such men are necessary for this century. Such renunciation is necessary in these days when men have begun to think that they cannot live a month without what they call their necessities, and which they are increasing out of all proportion. It is necessary in a time like this that a man shall arise to demonstrate to the skeptics of the world that there yet breathes a man who does not care a straw for all the gold or all the fame that is in the universe, yet there are such men. The other idea of his life was intense love for others. The first part of my master's life was spent in acquiring spirituality, and the remaining years in distributing it. People in our country have not the same customs as you have in visiting a religious teacher or a sannyasin. Somebody would come to ask him about something. Some, perhaps, would come hundreds of miles, walking all the way, just to ask one question, to hear one word from him. Tell me one word for my salvation. That is the way they come. They come in numbers, unceremoniously, to the place where he is mostly to be found. They may find him under a tree and question him, and before one set of people has gone, others have arrived. So if a man is greatly revered, he will sometimes have no rest day or night. He will have to talk constantly. For hours people will come pouring in, and this man will be teaching them. So men came in crowds to hear him, and he would talk 20 hours in the 24, and that not for one day, but for months and months, until at last the body broke down under the pressure of this tremendous strain. His intense love for mankind would not let him refuse to help even the humblest of the thousands who sought his aid. Gradually, there developed a vital throat disorder, and yet he could not be persuaded to refrain from these exertions. As soon as he heard that people were asking to see him, he would insist upon having them admitted and would answer all their questions. When expostulated with, he replied, "I do not care. I will give up 20,000 such bodies to help one man. It is glorious to help even one man." There was no rest for him. Once a man asked him, "Sir, you are a great yogi. Why do you not put your mind a little on your body and cure your disease?" At first, he did not answer, but when the question had been repeated, he gently said, "My friend, I thought you were a sage, but you talk like other men of the world. This mind has been given to the Lord. Do you mean to say that I should take it back and put it upon the body, which is but a mere cage of the soul?" The end and thereafter. So he went on preaching to the people, and the news spread that his body was about to pass away, and the people began to flock to him in greater crowds than ever. You cannot imagine the way they come to these great religious teachers in India, how they crowd around them and make gods of them while they are yet living. Thousands wait simply to touch the hem of their garments. It is through this appreciation of spirituality in others that spirituality is produced. Whatever any man wants and appreciates, that he will get, and it is the same with nations. If you go to India and deliver a political lecture, however grand it may be, you will scarcely find people to listen to you. But just go and teach religion, live it, not merely talk it, and hundreds will crowd just to look at you, to touch your feet. When the people heard that this holy man was likely to go from them soon, they began to come around him more than ever, and my master went on teaching them without the least regard for his health. We could not prevent this. Many of the people came from long distances, and he would not rest until he had answered their questions. "While I can speak, I must teach them," he would say, and he was as good as his word. One day, he told us that he would lay down the body that day, and repeating the most sacred word of the Vedas, he entered into Samadhi and passed away. His thoughts and his message were known to very few who were capable of giving them out. Among others, he left a few young boys who had renounced the world and were ready to carry on his work. Attempts were made to crush them, but they stood firm, having the inspiration of that great life before them. Having had the contact of that blessed life for years, they stood their ground. These young men, living as sannyasins, begged through the streets of the city where they were born, although some of them came from high families. At first, they met with great antagonism, but they persevered and went on from day to day, spreading all over India the message of that great man, until the whole country was filled with the ideas he had preached. This man, from a remote village of Bengal, without education, but the sheer force of his own determination, realized the truth and gave it to others, leaving only a few young boys to keep it alive. Today, the name of Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa is known all over India to its millions of people. Nay, the power of that man has spread beyond India, and if there has ever been a word of truth, a word of spirituality that I have spoken anywhere in the world, I owe it to my master. Only the mistakes are mine. This is the message of Sri Ramakrishna to the modern world. Do not care for doctrines, do not care for dogmas or sects or churches or temples. They count for little compared with the essence of existence in each man, which is spirituality. And the more that this is developed in a man, the more powerful is he for good. Earn that first, acquire that, and criticize no one, for all doctrines and creeds have some good in them. Show by your lives that religion does not mean words, or names, or sects, but that it means spiritual realization. Only those can understand who have felt. Only those that have attained to spirituality can communicate it to others, can be great teachers of mankind. They alone are the powers of light. The more such men are produced in a country, the more that country will be raised. And that country where such men absolutely do not exist is simply doomed. Nothing can save it. Therefore, my Master's message to mankind is, be spiritual and realize truth for yourself. He would have you give up for the sake of your fellow beings. He would have you cease talking about love for your brother and set to work to prove your words. The time has come for renunciation, for realization, and then you will see the harmony in all the religions of the world. You will know that there is no need of any quarrel, and then only will you be ready to help humanity. To proclaim and make clear the fundamental unity underlying all religions was the mission of my Master. Other teachers have taught special religions which bear their names, but this great teacher of the 19th century made no claim for himself. He left every religion undisturbed because he had realized that in reality they are all part and parcel of one eternal religion.